I'm calling to order the Finance and Administration Committee meeting of July 13th. Uh, Will the minute taker please call the roll?
Alderman Wesley. Alderman Winger.
Here.
Alderman Ptolemy. Here. Alderman Subak. Here. Alderman Shockey.
Here.
Alderman Peizik. Here. Alderman Coles. Here. Alderman Knipe.
Here.
First item on our agenda is approval of minutes of June 8th, 2006. I make that motion.
Second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is the GFOA Certificate of Achievement, and I believe this is a verbal discussion. And with that, I'll ask Ms. Powers.
Thank you, Chairman Winger. This is our Certificate of Achievement for the year ending April 30th of 2005. The City of Wooddale has received these for most of the last 15 years, I believe. We did not submit for the year ending April 30th, 2004, because that audit was completed much later than the program allows for submission. So I'm happy to see that we're back on the track of receiving this, and we certainly hope we'll get it for April 30th of 2006.
Okay, great. Thank you. With that, that item is for information only. Next item is item number 5, an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 7 of the Municipal Code of the City of Wooddale to provide for the elimination of the position of collector. And with this, it's my understanding that this is more of a house cleaning item and helps clarify a little better on how we're doing things today. Is there any discussion? Alderman Ptolemy.
Yeah, I want to say, I'd swear that we already took care of this a couple of years ago. Why is it back on?
Mr. Manager.
This did come to our attention because we couldn't find, if we did it a couple of years ago, we don't have an ordinance on this that we could determine. We sometimes have a request for signatures from a collector, and most of these collectors, as you have said, are eliminated in the,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and make the motion to accept the ordinance drafted amending Chapter 2, Article 7 of the Municipal Code of the City of Wooddale to provide for the elimination of the position of collector. Is there a second?
second.
On the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 6 of the Municipal Code of the City of Wooddale to provide for the appointment of the city attorney and changing designation as an executive office. Is there any discussion on this? Alderman Subak.
This was brought up at my request from the city manager. It's just basically going to the way all the other municipalities do it, where the city attorney is not considered an employee of the city. They're considered an independent contractor. Besides actually changing our municipal code, I think we have an ordinance in place also. And so I just want to ask, we can defer it till next week, but if this ordinance will also repeal that previous ordinance that allows for the city manager to appoint the city attorney. Besides actually being our code, there's a separate ordinance, I think, that was passed some years ago when there's a changeover in the manager, so.
Mr. Manager?
I would have to refer that to the attorney. This does amend that ordinance, so I would assume this would take the place of it, but the exact protocol, I would have to refer to the attorney, so we will have that information for you for next Thursday.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? I'm going to make the motion to accept this ordinance as drafted, a resolution authorizing, an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 6 of the Municipal Code of the City of Wooddale to provide for appointment of the city attorney and changing designation as an executive office.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 7 is a resolution authorizing the execution of a contract for professional legal services between the City of Wooddale and Bond Dixon and Associates. Is there any discussion on this item? Alderman Ptolemy.
Yeah, I just have one, and it has to do with Section 9, page 5, item B. Just if I could get a clarification on that. from the city manager?
And Mr. Manager, I also, in that area, the portal to portal, if we can give a little background on that one as well, and thank you.
As far as the charge, and I looked at that too, for postage courier service, parking, this would be involved in certain instances that they would be on city business. I think this is a standard in the contract. Any individual items in this, again, this is the first draft, and we provided it for your discussion, I would have to get back to you probably on.
Well, my question, again, if I could follow up?
Yes.
Okay. Then I'd like to know, I mean,
Okay.
the fee for attendance at all city meetings, is that per month? Is that per meeting? Because if there's a meeting and the meeting is only half hour, is that going to apply? And if that's the case, then I think that needs to be addressed.
In response, I think that they offered it either way, and though sometimes our city council meetings are quite short, sometimes they're quite long, and the zoning board is always long. And so, sure, in some cases, there'll be a windfall that the attorney gets out of here quickly. Other times, like the zoning board, when they're there till midnight, if they're billing at $140 an hour, we'll go way beyond that $400. So I believe Bond Dixon was going to leave it either way. And previously, we had said we'd rather have a flat fee so we can budget and we know how much we're going to pay per year because we know how many meetings there are.
Mayor?
Although not to confuse people, the way I read this, the zoning board meetings are billed per hour, and the other meetings are all flat fee.
Okay.
So, the second sentence, attendance at
Right,
meetings
right,
is.
right.
I want to answer your question, portal to portal, that means from leaving the office to return to the office.
Okay, thank you.
So it would include travel time as well.
Thank you.
Well, I still think then that first thing should be better clarified somehow, because I know there's been instances where we've had the attorney here, and he's been here for, maybe a half hour, and, he's, because at a special meeting or something, and he's left. I mean, maybe we should look at a different way of doing that for those types of meetings as opposed to the actual council meetings.
Mr. Manager?
Yes, I will talk to him and see if he'd be willing to take it if it's less than an hour, it would be an hour. Anything over an hour would be the full amount.
Okay, so then your suggestion, that would apply to all the meetings? Or I'm not clear on this suggestion.
I think we just bring it back to Pat next week when he's here and he'll clarify. Maybe we want to do straight hourly rate for all meetings so that when he's here, we're paying the firm. When they're not here, we're not paying them. So, and we're not looking at our watches trying to get them out of there before an hour.
Right.
59 minutes to shuffle them out the door and let Mayor Johnson or myself play city attorney.
Okay. Mr. Manager?
Yes, this was placed on for discussion, first review, to give you some, and if there are any other items that, we need clarification on, we would probably have to take them up with the attorney before we actually passed it. So this is, what we're trying to do here is make a determination and determine if, what, as the first review, what you wanted, what you agreed with, and those items that we have to look at further.
Okay. So the way I understand it, really the only open item is Section 9, Item B, so far, unless I hear otherwise from
I have no problem
the
with,
team here.
I have no
Okay.
problem with the rest of it.
Okay. So which way would we like to take this item?
I would suggest doing a motion to approve and we can make the final discussion with Pat at the council meeting. Unless you want to pay him to come to a committee meeting, which I doubt, so.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to approve the resolution as presented.
Second. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is item number 8, report and recommendation, request to extend agreement for sales tax incentive for Maher Lumber. Ms. Powers, did you care to add any information?
Yes, Chairman Winger. There was a sales tax sharing agreement signed with Maher Lumber several years ago, and it provided for the agreement to begin in 2003 and end June 30th of 2006. Due to several problems with the original agreement, the city did not start paying this on time, and Maher Lumber has to date collected about $131,000 out of a total possible $200,000 of sales tax. This is sharing in the sales tax Maher Lumber generates in the city of Wooddale. And they are asking if the agreement could be extended through December 31st due to those initial delays in paying them. They want to extend it from June 30th to December 31st of 2006.
Alderman Subak?
Roger, do we know what the status is? I know initially we did this because they needed to make upgrades for fire code issues. Are they up to code now with respect to making all those repairs?
Mr. Noack?
Chairman. Yes, they are up to date and current with all their fire safety requirements and other building code requirements and issues.
Okay. Many of the members here were not on the council when we made this agreement, but, you know, they are considered one of our stronger sales tax producers. We didn't want to see them leave, and we were able to address a fire safety issue with somewhat of a cost sharing. So if it was the city's fault for not getting this paid timely, it's certainly not out of the ordinary to extend it. So I would agree with the staff recommendation to extend the sales tax with Maher to December 31st, 2006.
Is that a motion?
That's my motion.
I second it. On the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Items to be considered at future meetings. We have item A, payroll status for employees hired before 1998, targeted for August 10th, 06. Item B, payroll outsourcing, targeted for August 10th, 2006. Item C, audit update, targeted for August 10th, 2006. Item D, updated report on water billing usage discrepancies. And item E, amendment to garbage collection rates. Both of those will mostly likely take place in the beginning of the fall, towards the very end of summer. Are there any other items? Alderman Subak.
With respect to the amendment of the garbage collection rates, I had a chance to talk to Rich Vandermolen from BFI, and we've heard a lot of talk with respect to seniors and what can we do. And it seems like every Monday when I put my garbage out, I see my family of 5 throwing about 5 garbage cans away versus a senior up the street who maybe has 2 people. They're putting 1 trash bag out, though we're paying the same amount for garbage disposal. So I asked Mr. Vandermolen, could we modify to do some kind of senior discount? He said he's certainly willing to do that, but I didn't want to have him do the legwork first until we discuss it at committee. So I don't need staff to do anything, but if we could at least maybe put that with the garbage collection rates, a discussion of some type of, he said he could work in different ways with maybe changing the brush pickup, maybe doing some type of sticker system for over a certain amount of bags, but certainly there's a possibility. It wouldn't be a huge savings, but it might be, you know, a couple dollars a month.
Yes, Madam Chair.
But staff doesn't need to, I mean, we'll just discussion, and then it will be a recommendation to go back to Mr. Vandermolen. So staff doesn't need to do anything, just put on the agenda.
It'll be put on the agenda.
Are there any other items for future discussion? I make a motion to adjourn. On the question, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Manager?
Madam Chairman, one more thing, the banking proposal.
Yes.
I don't know, that's going to be an item for a future meeting. I don't know if it'll be August or not, but that's another item to put on here.
Okay, then item F will be the banking proposals to step through those. So I called the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, I'd like to call a meeting of the Planning, Zoning, Building Committee together. Let the minutes show that all present members are still here. Next item is approval of minutes of June 8th, 2006. There is a correction on page 4. At the bottom, this is based on discussion. Alderman Knight made a motion, seconded by Alderman Zubak, to approve the request for the side yard variance. Roll call was taken. Myself and I believe Alderman Coles did not vote in favor of it. We were both in the negative on that. Alderman Coles, is that correct? That's right. Okay, so with that change, then ask for approval of the minutes.
So
Do we have a
moved.
Second? I'm sorry, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next item is the report and recommendation, case number 06V5, Caroline, vacant lot at 317 Carter. The request for variance for lot width and lot area. Petition requests variance to reduce both required lot width and lot area to allow for the construction and use of a single-family resident. The petitioner and owner, Tony Caroline of Caroline Builders, filed an application for a lot with variance requesting reduction from the required R1 standard 100-foot at the building line to 70 feet for proposed construction use of detached single-family dwelling. Under the 75% rule, the actual required lot width is 75 feet. Also under the 75% rule, the required lot area is 11,250 square feet. The actual area of the subject vacant lot is 14,000 square feet, and it exceeds the 75% requirement by 2,750 feet. So this lot area will not need a variance. I believe the petitioner and the attorney are here this evening.
That is correct.
Mr. Breen?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is Thomas Breen. Attorney in my office is located at 619 South Addison Road, Addison, Illinois. I come before you on behalf of my client, Anthony Caroline, who is president, and Caroline Builders, who are the owners of the property, which is the subject matter of this hearing. We come before you requesting a variation in the lot width in your R1 zoning ordinance as it applies to this lot from 75 feet, and I would point out, as indicated, that that's after applying the 75% rule to 70 feet to allow the petitioner to construct a new single-family residential home on the property. I would point out to you that all other bulk requirements, when considered and considering the 75% rule, will be complied with. The property is commonly known as 317 Carter and is located approximately 165 feet east of Addison Road on the north side of Carter. The property is zoned R1 and has lot dimensions of 70 feet in width by 200 feet and contains, as indicated, 14,000 square feet. It is surrounded by residential property. Just briefly, on the north it is R1, on the south R3, to the east R1, and to the west R1. And if you would cross Addison Road, there's one lot there, it would be R2. This lot was created along with the lots to the east and to the west in a 5-lot subdivision, and that was created in 1963. Only one of those lots now comply with the bulk requirements, and that would be the corner lot. And in fact, lots 3, 4, and 5 are now legal non-conforming and are identical in shape and size as the one in question, and we'll discuss that. The lot in question is a legal non-conforming lot and was created in that respect from subsequent zoning ordinances, and now does not comply with their bulk requirements even if the 75% rule is applied. But in looking at the variation, I would ask each of you to look at how it affects the surrounding properties. To the south, the zoning is R3, and the lot sizes and widths in that subdivision in that area are substantially less than the ones in the lots 3, 4, and 5 are the lot in question, and therefore I would suggest that it would have no impact at all and would be consistent with that. The houses to the east, there's 2 lots which were part of this subdivision. They were created at the same time, and they also are identical in size. Those lots now would have the same problem, even though they are built upon, God forbid, if there was some sort of fire that destroyed these homes, those lots would now become unbuildable. They could not reconstruct, and I believe that you would agree with me that that would be totally unconscionable to those owners. The property to the west would abut our property, but it would be to the rear, and there they have approximately a 50 to 60-foot rear yard. We would then have our side yard, which we're complying with the side yard requirements of R1, and there would be no effect as to the distances between that property. To the north, even though it is R1, the granting of this variation does not have any adverse effect or impact upon this because of the depth of the property. The property to the north is R1, but our lot is 200 foot deep. If you look at our site plan, we're setting it back 45 feet from the property line for the front yard, which is in excess of the requirement. The home is then constructed, and in the rear, we would have approximately 100 feet rear yard. So therefore, I would suggest because of that distance, it would have no adverse effect or impact on the property to the north. There is no question that without the variation, the city, in effect, has created this property to have no value. It would be unusable, and the property owner would obviously be unable to obtain any return for this property. There's no question, as inferred by staff, that this is a unique situation. It was created by subsequent rezonings and zoning ordinances. Thus, we are before you today, and I understand that that is not completely unique, that there are other lots that exist or other subdivisions that exist in the ordinance. But as it relates to the hardship, I believe that there is no question that this was a lot which was legally created and now, because of subsequent changes, becomes legal nonconforming. The variation will not adversely affect the property to the east, as they have the identical problem, as I pointed out, and to the west, the setbacks are substantial. As a result of the compliance with the side yards and the excessive front yard and rear yards, I would suggest to you that there would be it would not impair the supply of light or air as it abuts the adjacent properties and would not cause any adverse effect upon them. It certainly would not change the characteristic of the property, which is residential, and it certainly is consistent with those properties to the east, which have the identical same problem, as I pointed out to you. The lots are certainly consistent with the properties to the south. As I pointed out, that's R3, so we would be consistent or larger than those. There's no question that my client, because the homes are already constructed in the subdivision in 1963 when the subdivision was created, the homes were then created as they currently exist. There are improvements on both sides, so it is not possible for them to now come back in and start acquiring property. If you've looked at our survey, there is a garage that exists on the neighbor to the west, who I would point out is here and is in favor of this if you would want to call on him. He has indicated that he has no objection to this variation. But his garage sits approximately 5 feet from our property line or even less. There's no question without the variation that the hardship is extreme. It's that it's not buildable. And I would also point out to you that there were some questions, I understand, at the former hearing as to stormwater detention, and my client assures the committee and the alderman that all stormwater management requirements, of course, will be met. There would be no adverse effect as to water or runoff. That's an absolute. We would comply with the city's and the county's requirements for runoff. Based upon these facts and on behalf of my client, I would ask you for your approval and your recommendation of approval. I would also at this time like to thank each and every one of you for consideration of this matter, and if you should have any questions of either myself or my client who is with me, we'd be happy to attempt to answer them. Thank you very much.
Any questions or so? Alderman Chalky.
Yeah, I'd like to ask why the zoning board turned it down. What was their thinking on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to the Zoning Board of Appeals, they had listed some interests of theirs as to why they voted against this particular request. And one of the items was, will the development contribute to flooding in the area? And as was explained, prior to this individual being able to receive a building permit, the engineering would have to be approved, and in no way can it impact any of the neighbors. In other words, it has to meet or exceed the present conditions and not incur any additional stormwater runoff to any adjacent properties. They also had They also had talked about the fact that they were concerned with the fact that this particular size lot would not fit in with the neighborhood. Although, as is stated both in the staff reports and on the Plata survey, there are three lots that are adjacent to each other, which are all the same size. And as staff had commented previously, it appears that when this subdivision, this 5-lot subdivision was platted, that the intent was for 3 single-family homes to be built upon each of those substandard size lots. The substandard portion of it, making them legal non-conforming, did not occur until 1976, after this particular subdivision was platted and 2 of the 3 homes were constructed. Those were some of the main concerns. But I do believe if you need any additional commentary with regard to the stormwater management impact, I would think that possibly Gary Holm from the City Services Department might be able to shed some light if that area has any particular problems. But it's my understanding that the topography slopes down as you go to the east of that particular property. So they, not only does this property and the property not only adjacent to it, but across the street, they sit on the high ground in that particular quadrant.
Thank you.
Alderman Winger?
Thank you. I have 3 questions, comments. The first is, if this variance is granted, then does the 35% rule apply when the builder goes to build the house? Or the 35% lot coverage, or what rule are they subject to
Yes.
regarding the coverage?
They would be required to be consistent with the bulk regulation requirements for that specific area. And as is with all of our zoning districts, with the exception of the R4, it's maximized at 35% lot coverage,
Okay, thank you.
and they cannot exceed that.
And then the second thing, this lot is near buyout property. Just a few blocks over, we have the buyouts. And as far as this piece of property, though, is any part of this property floodplain? And maybe that's a question for Mr. Holm? Or Mr. Noack, whoever you prefer.
I've spent the last week, ironically, staring at those floodplain maps, doing work on the CRS program, and these properties are out of the floodplain.
Okay.
To the east is the floodplain, but these properties are not in there.
Okay, thank you. So ultimately, I am in favor of this this development then. However, the one thing I would request, I drove by the property yesterday and I didn't see the zoning sign out there, and I do feel that's an important piece of the whole process because it gives the neighbors a chance to know that this property is up for zoning and to come to council should they desire.
We will cause it to be back up. I believe that it was there, and we will get it back up
Okay,
immediately.
great. Thank you.
And I apologize.
Alderman Pysek, did you have?
I don't know who to address the question to. Does anyone have a plot of where the house is going to be situated on the lot?
I believe that a site plan was tendered. I have some additional ones, so if they're not in your package, I'll send them out. I'll tender them. The house would be sitting back 45 feet from the, and I'm going to insert on these so when I get down at the, I would point out to you that the home will sit back 45 feet from the property line. The home would be constructed, and then the rear yard after the house is approximately 100 feet. So you'd have a 45-foot front yard and a 100-yard approximately rear yard, and the side yards would be in compliance with your bulk requirements of your R1 zoning district. And I don't know if that's coming out. Maybe you can slide it. No, the other one. Yeah, there you go. I can hardly read it, but if you went to
Mr.
the
Breen,
property line.
Mr. Breen, you're going to need to use the portable if you step away from the podium.
If you would look at the property line and go to the garage, which is the frontmost, I believe it'll show that it's 45 feet, but I can't read it from here, but just in recollection. The home is approximately, what is the home, like 50, 35, I think it's closer to 42, but 42 to 43 feet deep. And then if you would then take those dimensions, the rear yard is in excess of 100, as I've indicated, and that's why I'm saying that to the property to the north, with that large of a rear yard, there would be no effect. But I can't read that, so.
Actually, my concern is basically with the neighboring garage to the west. It's quite
The
forward.
neighboring garage exists, that's this garage. It sits approximately 3 to 4 feet off. We're aware of that situation. He has a right to have it there, I assume, under ordinances, and my client is willing to build the home there, but there would be no adverse effect upon property owner to the west, as that is his rear yard. But I don't believe that I have the right to require that to be demolished, and
I understand that, but looking at it, it's like a big white elephant next to the driveway of the property
understand.
you want to develop.
and that's a detriment to my client, but
Well, it's a
again, I'm
detriment to the
assuming
look
that
of the
it's-
neighborhood is what it is.
But again, I don't own that property, so I have no control over that. I'm just saying we are aware of it, and there's really not too much we can do.
Alderman Tully?
I have a question. In looking at this document that we just received tonight, okay, the residents, and I don't know if that's east or west or which direction.
I
but to-
believe, and I'm
to
gonna
the
do this
top.
from memory, I believe that this is north,
Yes.
this would be south, and then obviously east and west.
Okay, so the property directly to the east,
To the east of it,
and it says, existing residents. Right in front of that, it says, access to property denied. Can you explain that?
what I heard was that the surveyor went out to the property and the owner
Oh.
did not allow him onto the property.
So it has nothing to do with, okay,
Nothing to do with anything else. The driveway just is on the other side of the property.
okay.
The access as it relates to the home to the east, the access to his driveway is on the far east or the other side of the lot as it abuts us. So there's
Okay.
no access issue there.
Thank you.
Alderman Subak?
I think the petitioner has shown that it's in conformity with the neighborhood. There are other lots that are similar size. This was originally a 5-lot subdivision. Obviously, when it was approved, originally it was to be 5 single-family homes in that area. There's not going to be any adverse effect on light or air for the other neighbors. It's going to be, all the other code requirements will be met with respect to lot coverage, setbacks, and side yards. I do think we should approve it, and I also, every once in a while, we forget about staff. Staff recommendations, as I've done work in other towns, is a big deal. We hire Roger and pay him a decent wage to research all these issues, and when staff does a recommendation from the building departments, because they're confident with their years of experience that this should be a lot in Wooddale that's buildable. So I would certainly support the making this a buildable lot and support the variance.
Anything further? If not, then I'd like to make a motion to approve a lot with variance requesting reduction from the required R1 standard 100-foot at the building line to 70 feet for proposed construction use of detached single-family home at the property known as 317 Carter.
Second.
Let's do a roll call on this, please.
Alderman Winger?
Yes.
Alderman Talamy? Alderman Subak?
Yes.
Alderman Shockey?
Yes.
Alderman Peisig?
No.
Alderman Cole?
Yes.
Alderman Knipe?
Thank you very much.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, the next item is the presentation discussion. The St. Francis Group proposed annexation and development at 6 North 441 Catalpa Avenue The petitioner is requesting a presentation of conceptual plan to gain insight into thoughts of the council on a proposed annexation, development, and expansion of existing unincorporated pet kennel and crematorium. Just as a little background, the St. Francis Group operates a kennel service, including boarding and grooming, and a pet funeral and cremation service. The facility is located on several residential lots on the west side of Catalpa Avenue, north of Foster, in an unincorporated area. St. Francis Group has been acquiring residential properties behind their property on Central Avenue. Their proposal is to annex the properties on Central into the city and rezone the property to M1, construct a new facility on the Central Avenue properties. I do believe the petitioners are here, and you have a presentation.
Correct. Hi, good evening. My name is Jan Fiola. I'm the president of Corporate Design Development Group. We're the architects, consultants, engineers hired by St. Francis Group to present the proposal this evening. With me, I have Tom Carroll, the vice president of St. Francis Group. He's passing out the proposed conceptual site plan at this point. I'd like to take you through a very preliminary conceptual proposal for this development, but first I'd like to give you just a little background. The overall, the existing building and St. Francis Kennels and Crematories is an existing facility on Catalpa Avenue, located near the northwest corner of Central and Foster. The present facility is located in lots 10, 11, and 12. However, as you mentioned, we've acquired some additional property that include frontage onto Central. That includes a total of lots 10, 11, 12, 13, 17, 18, 19, and 20, a total of 2.7 acres. This is an overlay of the existing property that is under the control of the St. Francis Group. As you're aware, there's was existing homes that were facing Central, very dilapidated. In the last 3 years, those homes have been demolished, leaving open space that faces Central. There's presently on lots 11 and 12 the existing facility, kennels and crematory, with 2 additional houses still remaining. This is the existing Carroll Kennel pet spa as it is today. It's an existing home that has been basically converted to the kennels and crematory. This is the way it is presently. This is as we'd like to have it. One of the reasons we like to improve this facility. It's an existing facility that's been around for a long period of time. As you're aware, these semis are actually forced to enter on Catalpa, which appears to be a residential street. This is some of the additional parking and traffic that are on Catalpa presently. This is one of the homes that we have control over. This is another home that faces Central. This is the open lots that we've demolished the homes over the last few years. And this is the last home. What we'd like to do is reorient the entire development. With the semi-trucks that come in, maybe 3, 4 a week, it's presently being forced in off of Catalpa. However, as you can see, we've taken the entire development and reoriented it to Central Avenue. What we're proposing is approximately an 18,000 square foot, 2-story animal care center with kennels and clinics and an educational facility for the community. Keeping in mind we have the existing crematory and chapel in the back, we'd like to maintain an existing waste transfer center also. The existing building semis that you saw, we're proposing to house those in a warehouse. The building itself is intended to be, I'll show you some existing, there's an animal care center very similar to something that we're proposing in Elk Grove Village. This is that facility. Some very nice features. What we'd like to do is develop this building with LEED certification, green design, with all economically conscious building elements, an effort to continue that friendly, social conscious theme into the building design itself. This also has some kennels where they've done a very nice design of developing it, incorporating it into the landscape and housing it without being obtrusive to the adjacent neighbors. Behind our building, too, as you saw, there's a pet park. These are becoming more and more popular for residents to bring their animals. Wooddale has one down Wooddale Road, as you're aware, and apparently it's becoming very, very successful. We'd like to incorporate something very similar, containing the animals in the back part of the development and in a fenced-in area. Once again, what we have is basically older homes in an area that's, looking for redevelopment. We're taking the traffic off of a residential street, reorienting the entire building toward Central Avenue. We have existing 4 curb cuts on Central, reducing those down to 3. Basically, in our design, separating traffic for the building itself from the truck traffic that would go to the warehouse in the rear of the lot. The proposed development meets all the setback requirements. We've done a preliminary review of stormwater detention. We have plenty of green space, no problems with floor area ratio. We can see this significantly improving the property values to the overall development. And I have with me Tom Carroll with St. Francis Group. We're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Alderman Subak?
There's a facility in Elk Grove. Where is that facility located?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's on Elmhurst. It's on Route 83, across from the Walmart.
Not in a residential area, though, right?
This area actually borders against, a lot of M1s also. That one is not in a residential area.
Thank you.
The only problem I see here is we're trying to get some of the M1 zoning out of our residential areas and make them pure residential area. We just passed a development with the old Bradford properties where we took a major factory and turned it into single-family and townhomes. And we just have been looking at a TIF district also where we're doing the same thing off of Irving Park. So what you're asking is kind of a reversal of our philosophy on what we think the city, what direction we should go. You're asking for a conceptual opinion. At this point, I would have to say I wouldn't support it for those reasons. That it's going contrary to what we're trying to accomplish now in our planning. Alderman Subak?
I think there is a place for this, but it's in the M1 district, and I think that if this is going to go, it should go in, in the M1, not into the residential. We're expanding a use that we've had. Quite honestly, I'm surprised we didn't have more neighbors here, but I've gotten complaints about the trucks and about the activities there. Most neighborhood would rather see this eliminated than expanded over there. So Again, I don't think it fits into the character of the neighborhood. You're expanding an M1 district further into a residential. If this goes forward, then the next thing you'll have is another M1 that wants to expand their use and start acquiring properties over there. And they'll say, you expanded one M1 use, now I'm next to it and I want to expand that M1 use. So again, I don't think that's what our comprehensive plan calls for. And I don't think that we should approve it.
Any additional comments from either the petitioner or anybody on the committee? Okay, since it was only for information and discussion, I guess we could take an unofficial straw poll of the committee members, and that would kind of give you an indication of what our feelings are. Alderman Talmy?
Sorry. First off, I think we should state that this property currently is all an unincorporated, is in an unincorporated DuPage.
Correct.
And, you know, when you kept referencing Catalpa and the residential there, you know, I mean, I want to make sure that people understand that, yes, part of that area is residential. However, it is not in the city. It is unincorporated. So it actually has no impact on the residents of the city, okay? But I just wanted to make sure that people understood that. And, you know, the fact that, you know, you have purchased these properties over the last several years, okay? We have had, in the past, we've had numerous complaints and comments, and we've been asked to get involved, and we have not gotten involved primarily because it is an unincorporated DuPage County. And I think at this point, I mean, unless something dramatically would change in that area, and I don't see it really happening, I mean, you can ask for your straw poll, but I would have to say no for this myself. There are residents directly to the north of that, which, yes, if you go a little bit further to the north of those residents, you end up in the M1 district of the city. But if you go just a little bit to the north of that property too, you also have Washington Street, which is, there are still residents on that street as well. So I would concur that that's not really ultimately what is in the plan of the city. And on top of all that, we, as a city, we do not even have within our code anything that would remotely allow for that type of a use. We would have to look at something to come up with a new use or a special use for the purpose of what you use that property for. And at this time, I can tell you, there is nothing in our codes that would support that.
I might add that the property, a few lots to the north of us, was annexed into Wooddale as an M1 Temco. So it seems as though the precedent was already set on the west side of Central. We were following along with what is already happening in that area. As you're aware, on the east side of Central, that's an entire, set of industrial buildings. So it's in keeping with that.
Alderman Talmy?
All I can tell you is that I voted against Temco. Okay? I did. I was very vehement about letting them allow them to build that building there. So, so you know where I stand. I mean, that is a residential area. And, earlier you had made the comment that the houses were old and dilapidated. That's my ward, okay? And some of the homes that you're talking about were not that, yes, they're older homes, but they weren't dilapidated, okay, to the point, or you've made them out to be. So, I'm sorry, but I can't support it.
Yeah. The homes that we demolished were condemned, so I was referencing the homes that we cleared already. As you're aware, this is an existing building, so we're looking to simply improve what's already there and take the traffic off of a residential street and put it onto Central, which appears to be more of a thoroughfare.
All
What
right,
we'd be
then,
offering, just to
ahead.
continue, be offering actually is a park in the front yards of those homes along Catalpa.
All right, then, just for a polling purpose, all in favor of the annexation on this project? Anybody opposed? Opposed?
Opposed.
Nay? We, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the presentation discussion of the proposed tear down and rebuild ordinance.